Hey everybody, welcome to the Week 13 edition of the NFL Prop Zone. I'm Dan Karpuc here for BetQL, and we had a big week last week. Nailed both Derrick Henry to score a touchdown and his alternate 2+ touchdown line, and predicted the big game for Michael Pittman. He got over 100 receiving yards, so he went over his receiving yards and his alternate 100+ receiving yard total. Those were the top two plays of the entire slate last week, in my opinion, and both of them hit very easily. Now we are up 36.2 units on show picks since the start of the season, and I am ready to reveal the top 5 player prop values for week 13 this week. A lot of these, especially number 1, but I think all 5 of these have a ton of value here. So without further ado, let's just get started. We're going to start off with Ramondre Stevenson over 20.5 receiving yards, -114 over at FanDuel. Now, I know it's a little bit difficult when you're looking at this Patriots offense to be at all interested in backing anything involving a pass. Mac Jones has been absolutely terrible. Bailey Zappi, when he's come in, has made some head-scratching decisions. This week, they re-signed Will Grier to the practice squad, but it doesn't look like he's going to get the start. Malik Cunningham, I don't think he is going to be involved either. So I think we're going to look at Bailey Zappi under center. I know Bill Belichick's probably not going to announce anything officially until the last possible moment that he has to. But it looks like Bailey Zappi is going to get the start based on what we've seen in Patriots practices this week. And well, why does that matter? Well, the Chargers have allowed 49.2 receiving yards per game to opposing running backs this season, the third highest mark in the NFL. With Zappi starting, and again, it doesn't really matter who's starting for New England. Everyone's going to be bad. But I expect a lot of checkdowns to happen here to Stevenson, who has seen at least 5 targets in 5 out of his last 6 weeks, dating back to kind of the middle of the season here. He failed to get to 100+ total yards in the first 8 weeks of the season, but he's accomplished that feat in 3 straight weeks. So if there's any positives we could possibly look at in New England this year, it's that Ramondre Stevenson is heating up a bit here. So you have to think that Bill Belichick's going to give him some more playing time, earn him, or not earn him, but reward him for what he's earned, I should say. He's earned the right to be on the field more than Ezekiel Elliott, at least. So I expect that to continue. Last week, Stevenson was on the field for 67% of snaps compared to Elliott's 33%. I think that's pretty reasonable this week against the Chargers. Yes, New England is an underdog here at home, but I think that definitely favors Stevenson as a receiver rather than having them as a home favorite. Obviously, when teams are down, they tend to pass the ball more. I expect that to be the case this week. Yes, the Chargers have lost some really close games, but their offense with Austin Eckler, with Keenan Allen, I expect Gerald Everett's now back. I expect them to put up some points, and it's really hard to think of ways that this Patriots offense is going to put up points without leaning on Stevenson, particularly in this matchup. I don't mind his rushing plus receiving yards, but again, if the Patriots get down like 14-0 or something like that early in this game, they're going to pass the ball, and I think Stevenson's going to pick up the bulk of his yards as a receiver rather than a runner. So Ramondre Stevenson, we also know that this Chargers pass defense is horrible. They're the worst in the league in terms of passing yards allowed per game to opposing quarterbacks. So Stevenson in seemingly a really good spot here to go 21 or more receiving yards. So -114 at FanDuel is the best price you can get that at right now. And that is number 5 on the list. Moving to number 4, Brandon Ayuk, longest reception over 24.5 yards, -110 at BetMGM. Now, the 49ers are going up against the Eagles. They're playing on the road in Philadelphia here. And I think this play really highlights a number of things here. First of all, Ayuk has recorded a reception of 24 and a half yards or over 25 and a half yards, I should say, in 5 out of his last 6 games, which really highlights how he's been used as one of the NFL's top deep threats. No team has allowed more receiving yards per game to opposing wideouts than this Eagles team. And Ayuk has attracted 41.7% of his team's air yards this season. That's the 6th highest rate in the NFL, ahead of guys like Tyreek Hill. Okay, so when they throw the ball downfield, it's more than likely going to Ayuk rather than guys like George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, other guys like that. The ball will more than likely go to Ayuk, who commands a very high percentage of his team's air yards, despite getting around 22% of his team's total targets. So when they're targeting him, they're looking downfield in this high-powered offense. This is a great matchup, shootout potential. We have a 47.5-point total here. And Darius Slay is most likely who is going to be matching up against Ayuk. And Ayuk has been a guy both in man coverage. He's dominated man coverage. He's dominated zone coverage. One of the more complete wideouts in the NFL. Slay has been susceptible to big games this season. So if he's shadowing Ayuk, I'm not really scared of that. He allowed 11 catches for 191 yards to CeeDee Lamb, even 8 for 108 against a guy like Jahan Dotson a couple weeks ago. So Ayuk is a guy who's gone off for 158 yards on 6 targets against the Bucs, 109 yards on 9 targets against the Bengals. Both of those teams pressure the quarterback a ton, just like this Eagles defense does. So this Eagles defense has been torched by outside wide receivers all season long. Gave up 3 separate wideouts to go over 100 receiving yards in the last 4 weeks. CeeDee Lamb, Jahan Dotson, and even Gabe Davis. So big play ability here for Ayuk in longest reception over 24 and a half yards. I also don't hate his over receiving yards. I don't mind his alternate receiving yards either. I think he's going to be in a fantastic spot to produce this week in a really good game environment. So that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, Bijan Robinson over 58.5 rushing yards, minus 115 at BetMGM. Now, Robinson's going up against the New York Jets. This total is disgusting at just 34 points. Atlanta is favored by 2.5 here. And Tim Boyle is getting the start again for the Jets, which means that the Falcons are going to be in a really good spot to score, most likely. They're going to be in a really good spot to control the clock. They're going to have the ball a ton in this game. They're going to have good field position, but I really think that this is another week here where we can really rely on Robinson. It finally happened over the last 2 weeks where Robinson broke out with 22 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown with a catch of 11 yards also against the Cardinals, and then 16 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown on the ground with 3 catches for 32 yards and another touchdown as a receiver against the Saints last week. The Jets, this matchup doesn't scare me at all against the Jets. The Jets have allowed 107.2 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. That's 5th most in the NFL. And Robinson has seen that workload increase over Tyler Algier, which is something that a lot of people were clamoring for at the beginning of the season. Over his last 2 weeks, Robinson has played 75 and then 63% of offensive snaps compared to Algier, who played 27 and then 29% respectively. So the rookie is going to see the majority of the snaps and workload again here. And we have to think also that this might be Arthur Smith's last opportunity to prove himself as an NFL head coach here. So with his job on the line, I think it's going to rely upon how he uses Robinson down the stretch. If you have all these weapons within this offense, you have Robinson, you have Kyle Pitts, you have Drake London. Arthur Smith is going to have to prove that these guys are going to get opportunities and that his quote-unquote master plan of saving them and really using them in spots earlier in the season was a smart move. I don't think it was a smart move at all, and I think most of us don't really agree that it was a smart move. But if Robinson and these guys start to produce down the stretch, I think he's going to have a better case to prove himself towards, earning back the job next season and beyond. So Arthur Smith's job, I think, is really contingent on how Robinson continues to develop here down the stretch. And once again, with Tim Boyle under center for the Jets, I think a lot of punts are coming, and I think we can see a big performance from Atlanta's offense in this one. Moving on to number 2, Rachaad White, anytime touchdown, plus 110 at DraftKings. Now, I backed this last week, and Rachaad let me down a little bit here, but we're going to go right back to the well. This matchup against the Panthers is too good. Tampa Bay, 5.5-point favorites. The over-under is just 37, but I don't care here. This is too good of a spot to attack. The Panthers have allowed 1.36 rushing touchdowns, which is worse than the NFL by 0.25, so a big margin, and 0.27 receiving touchdowns, which is tied 6th worst in the NFL, for a total average of 1.63 touchdowns per game allowed to opposing running backs this season. He has a stranglehold on Tampa Bay's running back position week over week. We've talked about how both as a receiver and a runner, he is a factor within Tampa Bay's offense. And he's one of the true three down running backs in the NFL. You don't see it too often anymore where you have these bell cow guys, but he is one of them. He's also game script proof. If the Buccaneers get up big, they're going to run the ball using him. If the Buccaneers get down early or get down throughout the game, they can use him as a receiver, where he's really popped off a couple weeks as well. I love this play. I think that this is one of the safer touchdowns bets you can make of the entire week. And at plus 110, I think there's a ton of value here. It's really hard to expect the Panthers to really turn things around at this point. You got to be pretty demoralized if you're on this Carolina team in general, but their defense isn't really being backed up at all by any offensive consistency. And this is the time of the year when I think we could really back someone like White in this spot, just given the morale that this Carolina team clearly doesn't have, and especially coming off of their head coach getting fired. You never know. Yes, it could light a fire under them, but it could also come to us as a surprise and kind of be a reminder of how cutthroat this league can be sometimes and how much of a business it really is. So you never know the connections that these players had with their head coach and how that could affect things. But regardless, I don't think that's going to really impact the play too much on the field. I don't think anything's radically going to change from last week to this week and from how this season has gone for the Panthers. So Rachaad White anytime touchdown seems like a great play to me, almost as good as a play as the number 1 play of the week, which is Pat Freiermuth over 28.5 receiving yards, minus 114 at FanDuel. Now, last week, the team clearly schemed to get him the football. He had a 9-catch, 11-target, 120-yard performance against the Bengals in a win. I don't think that's going to happen again. However, we just need him to get to 29 yards. So why did they scheme to get him the ball last week? Well, it was because the team that they faced off against last week played a lot of too high coverage. So the Bengals played a lot of too high coverage. And guess what? Per Scott Barrett of Fantasy Points, Freiermuth ran 9 routes and got 7 targets, which he turned into 80 yards against too high coverage last week. This week, the Steelers play the Cardinals, who play too high coverage at the second highest rate in the NFL. That's 62.8%. Another big week here should be ahead, especially because the Steelers schemed to get him the ball against that type of coverage last week in his first game without Matt Canada. This Cardinals team just allowed Tyler Higbee to catch 5 passes for 29 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Before that, Dalton Schultz, 32 receiving yards. Kyle Pitts, 30 receiving yards. All 3 of those guys, or the 2 previous guys, I should say, also got over this number. So 3 guys in a row, starting tight ends, have gotten over this 28.5 number. And judging from his performance last week, it's really, really hard not to like him, especially with the schematics in play that I just mentioned here with that too high coverage. You have to think that a team at this point of the season, like the Cardinals, they're not going to just completely abandon their style of play to prevent a tight end performance when you have other guys in this offense that can make a difference. You have Jaylen Warren, you have Najee Harris coming off a big performance last week. You're going to think that they want to shut down the running game. You also have Deontay Johnson, George Pickens in the passing game. So Freiermuth is a guy that I don't expect this defense to scheme against. Maybe they'll give some plays up over the middle of the field here. Once again, just allowing Freiermuth to make things happen in the passing game while shutting down some of those other aforementioned guys. So Freiermuth over 28.5 receiving yards. I'm going to hit some alternate lines on this as well, but he is by far my favorite play of the week. So Ramondre Stevenson over 20.5 receiving yards, minus 114 at FanDuel, comes in at number 5. Number 4, Brandon Ayuk over 24.5 longest reception, minus 110 at BetMGM. Bijan Robinson over 58.5 rushing yards, minus 115 at BetMGM. Rashad White anytime touchdown, plus 110 at DraftKings. And Pat Freiermuth over 28.5 receiving yards, minus 114 at FanDuel. These are the top 5 player prop picks this week, in my opinion. And I have to mention before I let you go, enter code PropZone for 20% off any BetQL annual subscription. This is the only place that you can get that promo code. And we've had a lot of people take advantage of this week over week here. So definitely hop in, utilize that promo code, get yourself some savings, and you could unlock, I should say, not unlike, but unlock. You will definitely like every week 13 player prop projection. We have stats that we project for every player every single week that is going to be on the field offensively for every team. We have corresponding star ratings for all of these players as well. We have that for NFL. We have that for NBA. Right now, I would say get in on the annual all-sport package. You can lock yourself in. A lot of active sports going on right now. Lock yourself in, the best savings possible. But even if you want to just get in for the end of NFL season, get most of next NFL season as well, get that annual subscription, and it will probably pay for itself pretty quickly based on how our model has been hitting this season and over time. So that is the NFL Prop Zone for Week 13. Let me know on X, let me know on YouTube, let me know on Facebook, and wherever you are seeing this, what you think. Let me know what you're tailing. Let me know what I got wrong. I love to converse with you all about player props every single week. So good luck, everybody, and I will see you back right here for Week 14 next week.